Welcome to Get Organized at Work. I'm your host, Kayla Fahey-Ahrndt, healthcare leader, mom of three, and your go-to guide for ditching the chaos and taking control of your workday. This is the show where we turn overwhelming to-do lists into clear, actionable plans so you can crush your goals and show up as your best self at work and in your life. Whether you're here for strategies to stay ahead or systems to simplify your workday, you're in the right place. Let's get organized, have some fun, and make this year your best year in your career yet. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to Get Organized at Work podcast. I'm Kayla. I'm your host. And today we're going to be talking about how you don't have to hustle to be a great leader. And it's part of our realistic expectations series. And I'm talking about living and leading beyond unrealistic expectations. So if you missed it, last week we did the hidden cost of unrealistic expectations, how to stop people pleasing at work. That was week 2. And week 1 was about redefining your best, how self-aware leaders build realistic expectations. So if you missed those, I highly recommend starting there. Each episode builds on the last one and helps you create a foundation for leading with clarity, not chaos. Although it's totally fine if you're here and you haven't listened to those yet, you'll be able to totally get what I'm talking about. Today, we're talking about something every high-performing leader needs to hear, which is you don't have to hustle to be great. You don't have to hustle to be a great leader. Because the truth is, hustle makes you busy, but purpose makes you effective. I'll say it again. Hustle makes you busy. Purpose makes you effective. So first off, I want to take you back a few years and talk about how hustle can become your identity. And I used to think that leadership meant that you had to hustle. I started in one of my biggest leadership roles 10 years ago, and I'd show up early. I would stay late. I wanted to interact with all different shifts, which I thought meant, I'm doing a great job as a leader. However, it meant that I got overextended, and I kind of treated that as a trophy. I was like, all right, at the end of the day, I'm so tired when my head hits the pillow, but I did something cool today. That's okay. I'm exhausted. I would stay late and jump into every project. And I thought if I wasn't this tired, then I must not be doing enough. I really thought most leaders probably feel like this all the time. And I hit a wall and I realized I was working harder than ever, but not necessarily on the right things. I wouldn't say I was totally off base. I was making a lot of progress and I had purpose, and actually wasn't a terrible delegator. I asked for help a lot because I really thought it was important to help my team grow. However, I learned this key truth. Productivity doesn't always equal progress, and hustle doesn't always lead to impact. So I see this all the time when I'm coaching my clients too. They're capable, brilliant, committed, but they're running themselves into the ground because nobody has ever showed them what purposeful productivity looks like. So that's what I'm teaching today. So I want to dive in and do some teaching on this purposeful productivity idea because I talk a lot about being intentional and I talk a lot about being proactive. And this is just a little bit different spin on it. I think it's going to help you understand. So the core idea for purposeful productivity is, as leaders, we have 2 main goals, right? Especially if you have direct reports and you're leading people or you're leading leaders. And those big goals are, number 1, you got to get results. And number 2, you got to grow your people, right? Get results means that we have to move the needle on projects, performance indicators, whatever it is that you're measuring. And 2, growing your people is helping people develop themselves, succession planning, helping people get to where they want to go. You're leading people, humans. So when we're busy hustling, it's easy to lose sight of those 2 things. We start doing everything that looks productive instead of what actually drives outcomes. So here's a tactile way to actually check yourself. I want you to ask yourself some questions. First, ask, does this action that I'm doing directly contribute to my team's goals? So if you have a task or a thing you need to do, does this action directly contribute to my team's goals? Number 2, the second question is, does this move forward any of my own leadership goals? And number 3, does this align with the organization's strategic goals? If you can't connect what you're doing to one of your goals, right? Something that you've said at the beginning of the year that you want to do, that you need to make progress on, or the organization has a goal or a mission or a value. If you can't connect what you're doing to these goals, it's probably not the best use of your time. I mean, I'm not talking about the required admin tasks that keep things running. Like there's stuff we got to do because we got to do it. But if you can't connect your daily tasks, things you're working on that you think seem strategic, but they're really just keeping you busy to one of your goals, then it's probably not worth your time. I want you to think about this. Real leadership isn't about doing all the things, it's about doing the right things on purpose. So, what can you do? What's the exercise for you to actually practice this, to put this into practice? It's a little mini exercise. What you can do is open your calendar or your to-do list, and I want you to just highlight 3 random things that you did last week. Can you draw a straight line between each of those actions to one of your top goals? If not, that's your opportunity to realign. And it can be a small tweak, right? There's going to be stuff that, like I said, you have to do, but there's also things that it's like, ooh, that was kind of fun to do, or that was something that somebody asked me to do. And maybe we could have responded differently by saying, well, that's not really the best use of my time, or I'm not the right person. Well, I can think of somebody who might be better to do that. Or maybe that thing can wait and it can pause. So we're going to talk about realigning in later episodes, but this is your opportunity to sort of like assess how's it going, and your calendar doesn't lie. What's on your calendar is what happened. So speaking of your calendar, everything that matters deserves a place on your calendar. And this week inside the Organized Leader Sprint, it's a 4-week leader sprint that I'm hosting right now. It started October 14th. I have this wonderful client, Kim, and she had a big aha moment around this. We were talking about how we only get 12 months a year to make things happen and how quickly weeks disappear when our schedules are full. And one of the things that Kim realized is that most of her days were spent in meetings, but the difference was internal meetings versus external meetings. So what I actually want to share with you to clarify, if you've heard me say this before on the podcast, is my 50% or less rule. So my rule of thumb is that no more than half your workday should be booked in meetings. The rest needs to be blocked for strategic work, thinking, planning, delegating, and executing on your goals. Because if your entire week is consumed by meetings, when are you supposed to lead, right? And so that's when I talked to Kim about this. And she realized that most of her days were spent in meetings, but it was both internal and external. She had been thinking about only external meetings. So I want to clarify, it's all meetings. And that can leave her with almost no time to do the actual work that drives results. So this is one mindset shift paired with the proactive calendar planning that can change everything. So what we're going to do in the organized sprint is audit her calendar. We're going to color code meetings, personal time, focus blocks, and begin moving things around before her week starts so that we're not reacting to her week, that she can actually be proactive. And that's going to make her immediately feel more in control and more prepared and less rushed. So we have to remember that meetings are where we share information. They need to have a purpose. Again, the purpose word. Focus time or our own calendar time is where we actually create impact. So think about if you are really struggling with what you're working on, you're like, oh my gosh, these things aren't aligned. I need to create more time for doing things that are aligned with my people's growth or my goals. You can look at your meetings, level load, decide, do you need to be there? Can somebody else go? Does this meeting have purpose if you're the one running it? Can they go to a different cadence, like every other week instead of weekly? Maybe you're just going to intentionally say, I can no longer make this meeting. I'll get the notes, things like that. So think about how can you move things around on your calendar so that the calendar can be your source of truth and you can free up space for you to do the real work that matters. All right, so let's put a practical framework around this. Proactive over productive. Here's how to put what we just talked about into action. So step 1 would be, I want you to map out what matters. Start with your top goals for yourself, for your people, and your organization. And I want you to write them down and make them visible. Most organizations have a tool to do this in, some sort of app. You can literally just do this in your notebook. If you like a structured place to do this in, I actually have my Leader Standard Workbook. It's linked in the show notes. I have a digital download that you can use, which can be used as a PDF digitally or printed out. But I also have a spiral bound planner that I would print for you and mail to you if you're interested in that. And it has a space to write out your goals. It's space for 5 goals for the entire year. So write them down. keep them visible. The second step is align your actions. So each week, what I want you to do is review your major projects or tasks and ask yourself, does this move me closer to one of my top goals? And I think you're going to find quickly that sometimes you're like, I don't really think it is. So that's just a great way to create awareness and intention around, okay, am I working on what matters, or can someone else do this? I know for me, every time I sort of level up in my leadership and find a different, maybe I'm being promoted or I'm working differently, or I want to be more strategic or sort of improve on one of my skills, I find myself needing to assess all of my tasks and think differently about them. So this is a great exercise. Step 3 is to schedule with intention. Block time on your calendar for strategic work. This can be thinking about what work you're going to do, planning. This can be project work. I love having space to think. It's the time where I sort of shut down my laptop or computer, get out my notebook and think pen to paper instead of looking at a screen. It's one of the only times I get to do this, right? Because if you're in meetings, they're all online now. Think about time blocking for people growth, whether it's your one-on-one ones, any coaching, any mentoring you're doing. And then, of course, you need time on your calendar for admin and communication. So emails, reporting, meetings, sending out, SBARs, things like that. And so I want you to keep those categories balanced and use the 50% rule to protect your focus. All right. And then the last step is step 4. You've got to reflect weekly. So at the end of the week, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just take 5 minutes before you log off and say, okay, what got my energy and attention this week? What truly mattered? And what can I let go of next week? Even if you do this at the beginning of the week when you're fresh from last week, that can help. And this is the difference between a hustling leader and an intentional leader, somebody who is purposeful in what they're doing, and they are basically creating an abundance of awareness for themselves instead of just going through the motions, which it gets really easy to do when we're very busy and we have a lot on our plate. Sometimes it's hard to hit the pause button or the stop button. So don't think of it that way. Think of it as your weekly grounded intention. You need to ground yourself so you can continue to grow. All right. So let's pause for your reflection moment. Which of your current tasks or habits are driven by hustle and not purpose? And where do you need to make space for work that actually drives results or develops your people? You can think about it. And if you need help, you can use my Realistic Leader Reflection Guide to map out what matters most this week. You'll find it free inside my Get Organized at Work podcast community app. I will link it in the show notes for you. And that's where I share bonus prompts where you can journal and share your wins. We can talk about it and kind of hype up each other in this community. There's almost 100 people in there now, you guys. Yep. My goal for the year was 30. And last I checked, it was like 96. So it's going to be amazing when we hit 100 people inside of the community. All right. And before I close, I have to tell you, inside the Organized Leader Sprint, we're seeing I feel like we're seeing major breakthroughs already with my client. And Kim, who I mentioned earlier, is realizing how much more focused and calm she can feel when she can proactively plan her week instead of trying to catch up all the time. It's going to be cool diving more in with her. And this live sprint is happening right now. And I feel like leaders who build systems that help them protect their time and prioritize what truly matters are the ones that are going to move the needle and truly, truly help themselves avoid burnout. And even in Kim's case, help with succession planning. And it's really helpful to have, what is my standard work? What do I do every day so that you continue to grow your leaders? So if you missed this live round of the Leader Sprint, you can grab the Organized Leader Sprint Lite and walk through the same framework at your own pace. You'll get all the trainings, templates, and time blocking tools that help my clients finally get organized without overworking. And you can get instant access at kfaconsulting.org/sprint lite, Lite. And basically, I deliver all this through email so that you have all the content and you can go through it at your own pace. So time is your currency, my friends, in leadership. So you got to spend it on purpose. So that's my goal, is to help you spend your time purposely and intentionally. So you don't have to be hustling to be a great leader. You just need to align your energy with what matters most. Because when we think about time management, really we're talking about energy management. Time's going to go on regardless, but your energy can be finite. So we need to manage it the best we can so then we can keep replenishing it. So look ahead at your week, look at your goals and ask yourself, is this helping me get results or grow my people? Because when your calendar reflects your priorities, you don't need to hustle, you've got purpose. So until next time, I hope you lead with intention. Grab my free downloadable reflection guide and join us inside the community. It's free, it's fun, and there's so many things in my free resource library. You can check them out, download it instantly, and be part of a bigger network of leaders just like you. All right, everyone, take care, and I will see you next week for the next episode.